Hey YouTube, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to cut straight to the chase for this one, on what's currently the most viewed video on my channel, a No Way Home edit tying itself to the main Spider-Man 2. There's been a frequent question that has been getting asked in the comment section ever since the release of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I'm sure y'all can guess what that question is. Did Peter 3 break a canon event? Well, I'm here to answer that question for you all. First, let's set the record straight on a few things, starting with how this is my personal analysis of the situation, based on factors that I've chosen to consider. I'm sure other people have already covered this topic, as it's definitely not an uncommon thing that is being wondered in the fanbase, so take this with a grain of salt, as just like with the others, I'm also simply a fan, same as you guys. The other thing I want to disclaim is that Sony and Marvel Studios don't play by the same rules. What is true for one continuity might not be true for the other, hence the division between what's the correct number of those universes. Speaking of which, let me know in the comment section down below if you consider the MCU to be Earth 616 or Earth 1999. Last thing is that this is subject to change. There's a lot of different things up in the air for where the future lies with Spider-Man, whether it be the potential return of Andrew Garfield's Spidey, the MCU, the Sony Spider-Man universe. It's all full of different possibilities, and the only thing we do know is that No Way Home inspired a plan shift. So what I'm saying now could be proven or disproven depending on what the future holds. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on with my answer for did Peter 3 or did he not break a canon event. I have to start this answer out by establishing where this question even comes from. A, obviously it comes from the concept of canon events introduced in Across the Spider-Verse, but B, it's also because of a line in No Way Home where Peter 3 says that Gwen was quote-unquote his MJ, putting some of us fans under the impression that MJ is a variant of Gwen and therefore subject to the canon event of dying as a result of being with Peter 1, which was prevented by Peter 3. So, is Michelle Jones Watson actually a variant of Gwen Stacy? I personally say yes and no, but for the most part, no, and here's why. Michelle Jones Watson is obviously the MCU's iteration of Mary Jane Watson. We all know this. I'm sure some of us remember the backlash from the rumors that Zendaya may be playing MJ due to being black and uncharacteristic for the part. And MJ is not a variant of Gwen. She's her own separate character, and they can even coexist with each other in some instances. Reason why part of me says yes is because she's a variant in a different sense. In Peter 3's universe, it looks like he would have met MJ during the lead up to Gwen's death, whereas Peter 2 met MJ first and then met Gwen later. So Peter 1 is a variant in which MJ was his first love instead of Gwen. This is why the line Gwen was my MJ still makes sense. Now let's say that hypothetically, even though MJ is not Gwen, that her status as a variant in the way that I just described still counts to some degree. Are there exceptions to canon events? And by that, I mean, do things always end in disaster for those universes if the canon event is not played out? Well, I think Beyond the Spider-Verse will come around to showing that yes, there should be exceptions. I don't think they want to ultimately end the movie with Miles having to succumb to Team Miguel's system of letting things happen the way he says they should. Does this mean that his dad won't die? No, maybe his dad will still end up being a sacrifice that he makes so that everyone else can have their free will. Whatever that will look like in terms of storytelling. And we've seen this before, very recently in fact. I feel like part of the big reason why Kang was a villain was not only because of his intentions and the nature of each of his variants, but that it isn't really a good look for people to have control over the timeline and to say that nothing should ever veer off from its predetermined path, as though everything has to be predictable and decided on by those controlling it. I'm a little biased on this one, but another part of the big reason why I think there are exceptions is because I don't see them ever exploring symbiote with Miles, which they say is a canon event. I don't know about you guys, but what I need is for more of us Spider-Men to actually get out there and do what we do. And you know what Spideys do? They stick together. In celebration, of what makes them who they all are, in spite of the differences. Forget Team Miles or Team Miguel for just a moment. Yes, MJ was gold and Ursula was a diamond. We get it. But when do we actually prove that there's no greater power in numbers than when Team Spider-Man shows up? Well, the time to do just that is approaching. On November 3rd, at the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse live concert in Sugar Land, Texas, at the Smart Financial Center. So exercise that great responsibility and join me. I'm going to be there doing what Spidey's do, and I want to see all of you there as well. But anywho, to answer the question that's brought us all here, did Peter 3 break a canon event? I'm going to say no to this one. As mentioned before, this is a Gwen thing, and Michelle's not Gwen, she's a version of Mary Jane. Now let's say to be Gwen and prone to this fate, what they're actually referring to as being the first love of a Spidey. In that scenario, Peter 3 might have violated typical rules of a canon event, but this would then classify as an exception, one of those scenarios in which the universe is built around things like winter entries that needing to happen. Because then why aren't there consequences in that case? Sure, Doctor Strange fixed everything by casting the spell that sends all the variants home, but that was the remedy to forget spell that he tried to cast earlier. It had nothing to do with MJ being saved. Why didn't we get anything like what happened in Mumbattan, or unfortunate events of What If, where Doctor Strange becomes powerful enough to break an absolute point, and the universe starts falling apart as a consequence? It's because there was no violation by any standard, not the MCU's, not Sony's. But also, let's not forget, as mentioned earlier, despite Sony's desperation to piggyback off of the success of the MCU by crossing over with them, the two aren't adjoined. The rules introduced to us in Across the Spider-Verse weren't considered in No Way Home because it's an entirely separate project that came before. And the events of No Way Home weren't considered by Across the Spider-Verse because by the time the movie came out, they were most likely quite late into production. Why do you think we only get one brief line about the events of that movie? Because that's all they had time to include. I understand that it's all ultimately one big universe, especially when you consider that MCU Spider-Man and Venom are now tied in a way, and that Spider-Verse ties itself to Venom. But it's not like the MCU and the Sony Spider-Man universe are part of the same conversation as it pertains to the writer's room. It's like trying to apply Endgame's time travel logic to an entirely separate time travel movie. Moral of the story, Peter 3 did not break a canon event. Canon events are not a concern in the MCU. That would be an absolute point. And for the time being, I think it's best if we let Spider-Verse keep their logic and have the MCU keep theirs until both parties actually work together and come up with a cohesive plan. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys all again next time. Goodbye.